So last time we talked about the shoulder control, the hips to the fence, and the first saddling. So we've got the horse now to a point where we've got some control of the front end of the horse. The horse understands frame and softness in the bridle, really understands that pressure release reward, that combined reinforcement. And that was reinforced quite well with that hips to the fence lesson, which I think really helps us to understand that as well. So now I've put into module 3 the long reining, a short reining, and the round pen. Now, I just want to, before we start, have a quick chat about the round pen. The round pen is something that I'd not used at all until I went to the States, and then everybody uses them. But it seemed to me all they did was chase the horse around into exhaustion in the round pen. So I didn't much like the things until I learned that that doesn't have to be like that. And they're actually really great places to learn, for the horse to learn. But they're quite tricky to use well, I think. So the first time I used it, I remember Josh coming up to me and saying, "Oh, Kate, you're boring that horse to death. It's terribly uninteresting what you're doing." And I thought, "Oh, okay, that's good feedback. Rude, but that's good feedback." And then the next time he came past, he said, "Stop stop chasing your horse." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so hard to get this right." And something I want you to watch out for when you see people using the round pen is conflict behaviors in the horse. Horses tossing their heads, pinning their ears, doing that sort of thing, because it's very easy to elicit those behaviors, because it's actually really hard not to chase a horse in a round pen. Because for the horse, if you're moving at all, you could be seen as chasing it, and it's got nowhere to go. So you got to be careful, because you might be sort of repeating the flight instinct over and over and over again, which just adds something else to the horse's repertoire, which is lead, which you don't want to do. So when I leave the round pen until this late session, because I want you to have a better understanding of the horse's emotional level. I want you to understand where the horse is emotionally before you put it in the round pen. Because I remember in the UK, I had a client. They used to do these series of starting your horse under saddle clinics. The first one was always the round pen, and she came and she just got this new cob, and she'd fallen off and she had a bad accident. She was really pleased with this new horse because it's so quiet. It was just ideal for her. She was thrilled. And she said, "But I'm a bit worried about the round pen because I don't think I'll be able to get it to move." So, okay, well, why don't you go last? And there was about 6 or 8 people in there. So she went last, and everyone else went through. They did their inside and outside turns, come to me. And she put her horse in the round pen. Sure enough, she couldn't get it to move. So she'd chuck in the lariat at it. And so the horse was going, yeah, whatever. Until, I lived on a road, until this horse and carriage came by. Oh, then the horse really came to life. Then the horse suddenly grew to 16.4 and started snorting its tail in the air. It looked like an arrow, this cob, and went tearing around the round pen screaming. And this poor woman is standing in the middle going, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And so what had happened was she had no idea about raising and lowering the horse's emotional level. She hadn't done any other lessons with the horse. So that really made me realize this is quite an advanced thing, and we need to understand the horse a lot better before we do loose round pen work. So coming back to where we are in module 3, then I start work in the round pen. If you've got a round pen makes teaching long reining much easier, simply because you don't have to worry about directional control. So that's why I like it. I teach it in the round pen when I have one available. If you don't have a round pen, don't worry too much. I would, if you've got an arena, teach it in the corner of the arena. Then you've got 2 walls, and do that wherever the horse is most comfortable. So it's probably near the gate home. Do it wherever the horse is comfortable, and then you can move around later. If you don't have an arena, maybe you've got a paddock, a field. Again, I'd do it in a corner where the horse is comfortable. if you can't find a corner, then at least have one fence that you don't have to. So it just helps you get that directional control before the horse gets very good. I love long reining because I also take my horses on trail rides on the long rein. So I use it to make sure that I can answer those two important questions. The first one is, can I ride that? So when I long rein a horse after I've done the first saddling and all those things we did last time in the long reining, I look at the horse, I look, walk, trot and canter. I've looked at the horse is maintaining its posture, it's light in the bridle, it's obedient and everything through the transitions. And I ask myself, can I ride that? So if a horse is bucking, I can't ride that because I fall off when the horse bucks. So, but if the horse is maybe throwing its head a bit, or maybe it's running into canter, I can definitely ride that. I'm pretty comfortable to ride that. So my answer to that question would be yes, as long as the horse isn't bucking going into canter, for example. And then my second question is, do I want to? And I don't get on a horse till I really want to. So a horse that is running into canter, a horse that is throwing its head up in the transition, I don't want to ride that. Because I don't feel that horse is relaxed enough or understands what I'm asking well enough to do it better with me on its back. I know it's going to be worse. As soon as I get on, it's going to perform less well than it did on the long rein. So I want the long reins to be 110% so that when I get on, I've got 75. Because I know I'm going to lose some performance. So that's, for me, is what long reining is all about. I love it because the horse is in frame. You can see the horse is in frame. You can feel whether it's being heavy in the bridle or whether it's light and whether it's in self-carriage. You can change direction very easily. You can take the horse around the arena. You can take the horse out in the paddock and do circles or straight lines or whatever you like. It is different from driving. So driving is where when people are starting horse under saddle, they quite often drive them. And that's where you stand behind the horse and the horse goes forward. And the difference is I can't see the horse's frame driving. So this, to me, long reining, it looks like lunging, but it's just much more educational because you're building those top line muscles. So I always think, you know, for my first ride, I want the horse to be in frame, you know, exactly the same way as it is on the long reins. And so what I'm doing from the very beginning is building those top line muscles and the abdominal muscles so the horse can carry me properly without, you know, when I go and sit on the shoulders, without it being strained or stressed at all. So I love long reining from that point of view. People often say to me, oh, I lunge in a Pessoa or I lunge in side reins or something like that. The problem is any sort of tie down that you use, the horse will usually have a post-inhibitory rebound effect, which means the head will go higher after you take it off. So you'll see people long reining as well, where the reins go from the surcingle through the bit and then back to the trainer. So, or back to the surcingle into the trainer. And that's put some leverage action on it, which really increases the amount of pressure the horse feels. So again, I wouldn't do that. I think we want to go, you know, straight from the bridle to the hand. So we go either, if you're doing it in a saddle, which I am in this little video here, you're doing it in a saddle, then you go through the stirrups. And I find that this is great because I've tied those stirrups together either with a bit of baling twine or a bungee rope, and the rein passes really easily through there. So you can see here, this rein's very loose, like I'm really not engaging it at all. The horse is nicely in frame. You can see he's using his top line muscles along here. He's using his abdominal muscles. His head's just in front of the vertical. And everything about this for me is fine. And I would look at that horse and say, that frame is relaxed, is quiet. I could ride that and I want to ride that. So this is what I'm testing here. One of the problems though with long reining is we've got no directional control. So last time we talked about shoulder control, and if I can put that left rein hair on that horse's neck, I could get him to make the circle bigger by stepping his left front in front of his right front, but I can't change where the rein is. So that is one of the disadvantages of long reining, is you have no directional control. So if the horse is falling in on this circle, all I can do is bend him to the outside, get his feet to follow his nose, and then bend him to the inside again. What happens if you do that consistently, bend them out every time they fall in, bend them to the outside, bend them in again, they go, oh, I might as well just stay out here, because that's not a great thing to have to do. So that's one of the drawbacks. The other drawback is particularly in the canter. I'll see if this horse canters. This outside rein, particularly in the canter, does tend, here, we'll see it here, it does tend to put a bit of pressure at a certain point on the horse's mouth. It's just back here, I think. Just there. See that? This becomes tight when that outside hind is first back. And for me, that's a meaningless bit of pressure.
Mm.
Is it a terrible thing? Probably not in the scheme of things. A lot of horses are ridden constantly with that amount of pressure, but it's something to be aware of, and it's something that only happens in the canter. So if you're aware of it, you can keep looser reins in the canter. I think in general, another drawback of long reining is the fact that you're so far away from the horse that your release is not immediate. I give like that with my hands. I move my hands forward, and the release just isn't immediate because it has to travel all the way down the rein. So that's a problem. The other problem is the horse doesn't really get a full release in the same way as it does if you're standing next to it or on its back, because of the weight of the rein. And quite often, it might be windy, or the reins might be wet, or anything else. There's all sorts of things that can make the reins a bit heavier. But what I do like is that I can change direction really easily. I can take the horse anywhere I want to go. Like if you're lunging in side reins, for example, you can't change direction to stop and then make the inside one shorter, the new inside one shorter, and the new outside one longer, and all of these sorts of things. So and you also can't feel the horse in the long rein. So I can feel here whether he's light or whether he's leaning on the bit or anything like that. It's also a really safe place for me to lift the emotional level of the horse a little bit if I want to. So, there is a lesson here somewhere. Oh, maybe it's not in here. There is a lesson, I'll talk about it later, but just lifting the emotional level of the horse a little bit, where I teach a horse trot halt transitions. And you can see on the long reins, or actually on the short reins, but you can see the emotional level of a horse going up and down, which is a really good place to. I'd much rather lift the emotional level here than I would when I'm on its back. If I've had a horse that's been off work for a while, then I think the long reins are great, just to see where the horse is emotionally and mentally, and whether or not it's ready to ride. If a horse, really that second question, do I want to ride that, is really important. But I just can't see any point in getting on a horse that you have to sort of cross your fingers and hope for the best with. And the horse will tell you that on the long rein. So that's really good. So long reining is fabulous, I think, for all those reasons. But you still are quite a long way away from the horse. And so I developed this thing I call short reining to bridge that gap, just make it a bit easier to go from long reining all that way away from the horse to jumping on the horse. So I thought, it's a little bit much. Another nice thing about long reining is that it really expands your bubble of communication, because you need to have that larger bubble. When you teach and give to the bit, you're very close with the horse. It's quite easy to keep his focus and things. When you get to long reining, you're quite a bit further away. So you need to keep it interesting. You need to keep your horse's attention. The short reining, I just think is really useful for for bridging that gap between riding and long reining and riding. And this was the one I was talking about earlier. So I've been riding this horse, and he was just a bit blur, like he wasn't focused, and it just didn't seem to be going hugely well. And I thought, I don't want to correct that under saddle, but I'll correct it on the ground. So I needed to raise his emotional level. And so what I did was I did trot hold transitions. And it really did. It really worked well. And he became much more focused. He got interested in what we were doing. I got back on and it was beautiful. It was much, much better. So it's great for that. So I'm closer to him. I've got, much more sort of control over him. Well, there, I just lost it because I asked him to canter. And I dropped one of the reins. But that's, that's all right. These things happen. If you do drop one of the reins. By this stage, the thing is with these horses, by this stage, they understand that nothing bad's going to happen. So you drop the reins and ask them to come to you. I always say that with long reining. If something goes horribly wrong, drop everything and get the horse to come to you. So it's really important that your horse has a good sort of come to me cue. Teaching long reining is not something you want to do with a horse that you don't know well. A lovely example of me teaching long reining with a horse that I didn't know well. Went to an off the track training clinic with standardbred horses, and 10 horses in the indoor arena. And I said, can somebody give me a horse that I can use as an example to teach long reining? Someone said, oh yeah, you can use mine. And I thought, oh, okay, that's great. And so we did the habituation thing first, of course, and went through all of that. The horse was quite nervous about having the reins around its hindquarters, and also how bad can be. It's a trotter; it's used to all this stuff, right? And so I just sort of continued on, and then I put the long reins on it, and it had a complete meltdown. And I could feel it was going to go. And I thought, oh God, this is not good. And so I decided to just let it go, and it just went galloping up the other end of the arena and stood there shaking like a leaf. Anyway, I went up and caught it and brought it back, and I said, oh, that's quite an unusual reaction. And she said, oh, yes, well, I did have a terrible accident in the buggy. Thanks so much for letting me know that. So if you have a horse that's had a terrible accident in the buggy, it's a very good idea to do a lot of this habituation work. That horse would have been fine had I had the time to do this. And also with that, what I learned with that horse is that horses that have had nasty accidents like that get also really worried about things dragging on the ground. And so that's something I do as well now. I will drag the rope behind me. I'll drag the rope. I'll put the rope over the horse's back and drag it. So any horse, like this horse is quite nervous about having the rope behind it. You want to do all those sorts of things just to really make sure that horse is ready, because you don't want to find out when the horse has already got the reins tied to the bit. It's too late. Good. So yeah, I would focus on that habituation. If you've got a horse that's had some issues, and we go into how to change direction. You just start everything in walk, nice and slow, everything in walk, and when the horse is ready, you might do half a circle of trot. So what you want to do is you just want to keep it really quiet and make sure that you've got those downward transitions, so the horse doesn't think it's got to trot forever. It's one of the things that I find with horses that have been lunged a lot. You put them on a circle and they think, oh my God, now I go round and round and round forever. So we need the horse to understand that that's not what this is at all. This is not an exercise in exhausting you. It's an educational exercise to build up your top line muscles. Cool. So I think I've probably talked enough about the round pen already. So we can leave it there, and I will stop sharing and open up for any questions if you have any questions.
What sort of size is the circle you're creating? I've got a smallish round pen. I'm thinking it might be too small to start off with.
Yeah, it's probably okay to start off with, because you're going to want a smaller circle. So even if you can work them on a 15-meter circle, that round pen's, I think, 18 meters. But the horse will usually work off the side of that, certainly to start. And you're going to be doing change of direction. And we're not pounding the horse round and round and round in circles. So I don't fuss too much about that. Also, a lot of them are going to feel much safer if they're closer to you. Certainly to start. Yeah.
And then with the short reining, how long are those reins?
I use split reins, which I think are probably about 6 foot long.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You need. Somebody gave me those reins. They're really nice. I have a feeling they're like Monty Roberts reins or something, just ridiculously expensive. And they're too long for my short horses to ride in. I have to tie them in a knot, which is a real pain. And they're actually a little bit heavy to ride in. I like them because they're soft and lovely. But
you can make your own, no doubt.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you can buy those Western reins, or even just two lead ropes, just not something that's too heavy in the buckle.
Yeah. Okay.